It's like ready to go. Like Steve said, my name is Ollie. Steve SouthWales before. Okay, this course is talking about deploying applications with Ansible and with Ansistrano and Ansible Vault. So we're going to start with a little Ansible crash course, then look at a basic deployment, and then sort of better deployment using Ansistrano. So a little bit about me first. My name is Oliver. I'm a full stack developer. I work for a company called Inviqa, and I'm very heavily involved in the Drupal community. A lot of the work I do is Drupal. I'm doing a version of this talk at DrupalCon in Amsterdam in October. So there's going to be a Drupal slant to this talk. So for the most part, in my sort of day job work and some projects, I'm used to using companies like these. So these are quite large, well-known companies in the Drupal space who do managed application hosting. These are optimized for Drupal or for PHP applications. And usually these include some sort of deployment system. So you push your code to their branch, they handle the deployment for you. So if you're working with these sort of scenarios, what I'm going to say probably isn't that applicable. If, however, you're using infrastructure, something like DigitalOcean or Linode, so some sort of virtual server or dedicated server or some sort of internal managed server, then this is probably going to be more appropriate. So we're going to be looking at, in this case, Ansible, obviously. In these examples, I'm using Vagrant. So the actual remote server doesn't matter. It can be hosted on Vagrant or DigitalOcean or Amazon or anywhere recently, basically. We're going to be setting up the Drupal site. I'm going to be using Composer to do that. Drupal itself is very heavy depending on using Composer. So first of all, what is Ansible? Ansible is open source software that automates provisioning and configuration management and application deployment. So most people use it for provisioning, so for setting up your servers, so installing a web server like Apache or Nginx, and so on in PHP. But you can use it for actual application deployment as well, which is what we'll be focusing on, obviously, for the majority of this talk. So it's a command line tool, so you run it in your terminal. It's written in Python, but you configure it with YAML. So we don't really write any Python code at all. You can do, start writing custom extensions and custom modules, but the majority of the time you're dealing either with YAML or sometimes with Ginger2 type of engine. And it executes commands on a remote server. So in this case, so the host is going to be my machine, and the remote server is going to be Vagrant or DigitalOcean or Linode or whatever. As I said, it is used for installing software packages. It performs deployment steps, and it takes a batteries included approach. And by that I mean it comes with a number of modules out of the box that you can use for tools like Composer and Git, which are obviously quite helpful for this scenario. When I've used other sort of similar tools, they don't have that. You've literally got a command line to work with, so there's no real sort of knowledge of actually what you're trying to do. Rather than typing commands in straight away. So made it posts, made it with commands, playbooks, tasks, and roles. So we'll look at all those separately in a moment. Then I'm going to talk a little bit about why Ansible. So I've used other similar tools before, but there is a very familiar syntax. So as I said, it's using YAML, which is very common in sort of Drupal and Symfony and a lot of other applications. And also the templating language that it uses is Ginger2, which is Python, but it's very, very similar to using Twig. You can use Twig again, Drupal or Symfony. Because it's using YAML, I think it's very easy to read, figure out what's going on. Again, it isn't always the case in some of the tools. There are no server dependencies other than Python running on the remote server. So I've used Puppet before, which is again something similar in terms of setting up servers. But to get that to run, you've got to install Puppet on a remote server and set up a Puppet master node relationship. With this, we don't need to do that. It's very easy to add it to an existing project, which is nice. As I said, it includes relevant modules like Composer and Git. And those we can use to plug into like Drupal CLI applications like Drush and Drupal console, which we would need to do for our deployment. First part, we'll look at hosts. So hosts are just a way of telling Ansible what servers we're going to run commands on. And there's two ways of doing that. One way is using this sort of ini syntax, where we're giving a group, in this case, we're calling it Ansible, so group or Ansible. And this can be called from web servers or database servers or whatever you need. This is obviously a very simple inventory example. And this is the IP address of the server. So this is a vacant server in this case. Although it could be host names as well. It doesn't need to be IP addresses. It could be multiple of them. If you've got multiple web servers, you can list them here. And then you've got also child groups as well, which we can get into right now. Alternatively, you can define them as YAML. If you want to use YAML everywhere, you can do that as well. Again, we're going to group them into the group Ansible, and then you define our hosts through an IP address. So now we've got our host, we know what we need to run the commands on, so we now need to know what commands on. So using the Ansible command line, we can say Ansible, then give it the name of our group, so we can say all, in this case, every server. This could be Ansible, it could be web server, it could be anything. And then with the -m flag, we can define which module we want to run. So the one that's used in documentation for getting started is ping. And all it's going to do is send a ping from a server and check and connect to it and get a response back. And that's why it's good when you put ping on, because it's actually getting a response. That's great, but we can then use actual other modules. So in this case, we can specify the command module. And using -a, we can pass arguments to it. So in this case, we're just going to say git run git pull. And we can say go in, change directory into /app, essentially where our application is going to live. Alternatively, you can write the same command like this. So the module this time is going to be the actual git module rather than the command module. And then we're going to pass through using arguments that the module gives us the repository address. So in this case, it's the Ansible repository, and then the destination, which is where we're actually going to plug that repository to in this case. Tasks and playbooks. So essentially, we can take all these commands that we want to run and group them into playbooks, which are just YAML files where we're specifying the same things. So in this case, we're still saying run it on every host. We can define variables in the playbook, so we've stored the Git repository in this case as a variable. And then within tasks, we can still run the same Git module with the same arguments. In this case, we're going to use the double curly brace syntax, which again, we're used to using Twig or Ginger2 or Liquid, for example, like used to this syntax. And in this case, we're just going to say, it's going to clone the repository for you if you haven't cloned it already. But by specifying the update true, it's going to then update the repository to the latest version when you run it. That's implied by default, but in this case, it's probably worth specifying that just to be specific. And we can tell it to update, so in this case, we're just going to say check out our master branch. We can run with the Ansible playbook command. So we just need to specify the path to our playbook. So in this case, I've installed it in an Ansible directory. And we're going to use -i to specify the inventory. So that is our host file of where we can run these commands. Let's have roles. And roles essentially are a collection of playbooks, essentially. So there are a number of roles, hundreds of effective roles that we can use off the Ansible website. And we can pull them into a file. You don't have to, you can do a requirements YAML file. We can specify which roles we're going to install. So in this case, Jeff Geerling, who's very well known in the Drupal community and the Ansible community, has written a number of roles. I think most of the top 20 roles are his at this point. But in this case, we can tell it to install different roles for Apache, Composer, MySQL, PHP, and PHPSouthWales. So just by including these requirements, we can set up a very basic set up a lab stack with Apache, database, and Composer. So this is almost like a Composer JSON file for one thing better. We can use the Ansible Galaxy command and point it to our requirements file, and it will go and install them for us. And then we can put them into a playbook, just specify the roles key, and then it's going to install those roles from next one our playbook. One thing to know about the role order does matter. I tend to do all the things alphabetically and found they don't work, and then realized that the order does matter. So in this case, have to run the composer role last, it requires PHP. So I couldn't put composer at the top where I wanted to put it after Apache because PHP isn't installed yet. So how can we use this tool to make a very basic deployment? So we can use modules like MySQL DB and MySQL User to create our database and create the user for us. And these tasks are all idempotent, so you run them once, and then if nothing's changed, it will run them again. So on the first occasion, it's going to look and say, is there a database called my database? If there's not, because we've set the state to present, it's going to check whether it exists. This will also be absent if you want to delete a database, for example. So as long as that database exists, you've got to try and create it again, but if it doesn't exist the first time, it will create it for you. And then likewise, it'll create our database user with our correct permissions. So now we've got our permissions set up, we can actually do deployment. So this is a deploy.yaml playbook. We can specify our tasks for our deployment. So first of all, we're going to create our directory, because that's where we want our project to be stored. So in this case, I'm going to store it in /app. And we're going to say that this needs to be a directory, state directory. We then upload our application using the Ansible synchronize module, which is going to use rsync just to upload all the files. This could be Git, or it could be various other things as well. In this case, Ansible gives us a playbook _dir variable, which is our directory we're running the playbook from. So in this case, we're just going to go up a level and upload everything into our directory. And then we can install our composer dependencies using the composer module. We specify the command to run, so it's going to be installed in this case, and then the directory we're going to run it in, which is /app. Again, there are some default values here, so like the no dev flag is enabled by default, so we don't need to specify that. And there's a few others, like optimize autoloader again is enabled by default, so we don't specify those. That's fine, but there are some disadvantages. Most of all, there's a single point of failure, so we've only got one version of our website on that server. If it was to go down, or deployment was to fail, then the website is going to go down. There's no ability to go back. So if again there's a problem, we can't go back to the previous version without doing another deployment, reversing our code back. And also we're storing our data in sensitive data in plain text. So our database name, our username, and our password are all stored in playbook in plain text, which isn't great. Ansible does have a tool for that. It's called Ansible Vault, which we're going to use. There's an Ansible Vault command, and we can say create a new vault. We do that by specifying the path, the file name for the vault. So in this case, it's just called vault.yaml. And then this is the screen that we're going to get. So by default, it's going to open up your default editor. So it might be a Vim or Sublime Text or VS Code. You're going to enter your variables. So using this key value syntax, YAML syntax. We'll store our secret database credentials there. And then when we save that, that's what we get in our file. So if we open up our file in plain text, this is what we're going to see. So this is password protected. So you could commit this to Git and upload it onto GitHub. Fine, no one's going to do it. What we can then do, what I tend to do, is then have another variables file where I just assign these to the wrong variables. It's just a convention I picked up. I think it just makes it easy to see what's going on there. So I tend to prefix the vault variables with vault, everything vault underscore, just so it's easy to see that's coming from the vault. And then just to make things maybe a little bit easier to type, I just make another variable without the vault prefix, so I can see what's going on there. So again, we're using that double curly brace syntax to substitute our variables into our playbook. And now this means we don't need to specify to include our database name or our password in plain text, because we can just call our variable. If we need to edit anything in the vault, we can run Ansible Vault command again. We can edit, and that will give us the same string we had before. We can make our changes and then update our file. And then when we change we can make to our deployment is to include this @vault pass parameter again, and you'll be prompted for your password before we can do a deployment, so we can then decrypt the file and get the variables out and do the deployment. There's also a way to store them in a file on the environment variable locally, so it's there. If you're doing like a service average or Travis buildings. This is fine, but there is a better way. So I like to use the tool called Ansistrano. So if anybody's familiar with the tool Ansistrano, it's a port of that. I think that's written in Ruby. So this is an Ansible Vault of that tool. And essentially it's just another couple of two roles that we can include in our project. What it offers us is multiple release directories, shared paths files between deployments. It's really customizable, which is awesome. We can use multiple deployment strategies and multi-stage environments. So we can use this for our dev stage, production, pre-production, UAT, testing, whatever we want to include there, depending on your project. We can also use the prune all releases. So we can say in our configuration and we include the last 5 releases, which is nice. And we have the ability to do rollbacks. So both of these, like I said, are additional roles. So you can include them in our requirements YAML file. And it's now ansistrano.deploy, ansistrano.rollback. It's before something else, but they've changed in the last 6 to 12 months to be good. And then we can include them in our playbook. So we just, under our roles key, we can just specify those roles. So we start deploying our deploy playbook. So we can deploy role. And what it gives us are these variables that we can use to configure it. So straight away we can say where to deploy the application to. So in this case, I've made a project deployed a variable that I'm going to reuse in a few places. But we can tell Ansistrano to deploy it to that directory by using Ansistrano deploy to. We can type how to deploy. So in this case, we can use Git, and we can specify the branch. So in this case, we're using a hardcode master, or we can make it configurable for the product. And we can specify the Git repository again. Here. And then to get it to run, we just run our standard Ansible playbook command deployment. Now also this is what we get. So inside our app directory, where Ansistrano has done its thing, we'll also see 3 directories. So not our actual application, like root directory application. We will see releases directory, a shared directory, and then a current symlink. So the current symlink is just pointing to whichever is the current release that's live. It does this for us out of the box, no configuration. And then inside the releases directory, we have a number of directories that are all typed based on the timestamp of the release. And yeah, so every time you do release, it goes a new directory based on the timestamp, and then once it's completed, it does the symlink to the current release. This is great. Again, we can customize this to only say keep the last 3, 5, or however many super applications. And the great thing, because we've got these releases, we can do rollbacks. We can do rollbacks exactly the same way by just having another playbook. And instead, this time we're going to call the rollback roll rather than deploy roll, and then just specify which it automatically picks the last one to go back to for you. And again, we can specify that by just calling our rollback playbook. So as I said, this is really customizable. So it gives us a number of build hooks. So the first one is setup. The second one is update the code. So we'll do your Git update Git pull. Then it's going to do your symlink shared. So any shared directories or files between repositories of the symlink. Then it will do the current symlink. So essentially it's like it's live at that point. And then it's going to run some cleanup tasks. And then each of those you've got before and after. So you can look into this. You do that by specifying variables. So the top one here, I apologize, that's a little bit small. But the name of the hook, so it's Ansistrano underscore, name of the hook, stack underscore file. So you can specify that in your file. And then in this case, I've just added some extra directories as best variables to web root path. So it gives us this Ansistrano release path. Dot standard variable, so that's the directory it's currently deploying to. So that's going to change based on these names are generated automatically at the point of release. That's how we know which directory you're currently in. And we can use that and substitute our hard-coded path. So it always goes to the right directory and runs up into the right directory. You can see in this case, this is run after the code is going on. So after it updates our code and our Git pull, then it's going to our composer update. In this case, we can then run database updates. So after we've run our shared symlink, so maybe our settings file, settings.php file is shared between each release. So after that's in place, we can then run our database updates. And in this case, then after it's our symlink, so the actual site is now live, we can then rebuild cache and regenerate the cache, so using the Vex content. And for that, hopefully we should see the website. So this is how box to the website. So rather than demo, I've done a demo, but rather than doing the whole thing, I'm just going to put a video. See if I can go to the screen. Okay, so we should start off with running the Ansible playbook command. And means that passing the Ansible Vault pass parameter. So it's going to ask us for our password at this point. And we'll just type the password in. And then we'll start doing our deploy. So you can see at this point, it's going to run a play on our transport group. And it's going to start gathering facts. So that means it's going to just start gathering information about our server is deploying to. Is it a Debian server? Is it a Red Hat server? What we deploy to. So it does some gathering of those first of all. And then it's going to check that our directory exists. So it's going to just make our directory for us. In this case, it's going to create our settings file on the fly. So everything that's yellow is stuff that's changed, and then green is stuff that hasn't. And then in this case, you can see what it's got. Ansistrano to deploy. So that's a task added by that role rather than something we've added. We want to learn from a separate role computer settings. So this is just doing its initial set of steps. Now it's just going to create that release instruction if it doesn't exist, share directory, and everything else. It's getting up is to figure out our release path for us. And then in this case, it's just going to use Ansible, I think in this case, just to upload everything. So take a few seconds to upload anything from Ansible. Well, the plug field onto the server. It does store just a provision number in a file, so we can reference that much more. It's going to run our next step. It's just going to set up our settings file. So it's going to remove the existing one and reading it. We're doing this on a per deployment basis. And it's then going to start looking for our shared paths. So it's running through each of those steps in turn, running a couple of extra steps. It's going to fit some directory permissions. We need things like our files directory to be writing on that web server. It's going to install Drupal really quickly. And then it's going to, now that's all passed, it's then going to change up our current software. And then we're cleanup steps. So obviously, if anything fails at this point, so maybe you've run your tests in your after you've told you're running tests. If that was to fail, and the whole thing is then going to fail, you want them to get any further, and then it won't do the same thing if it's failed. And then that once that's happened, it's all gone from there. So let's see. So just the very last step, it's changed our symlink across. The site is now essentially live, and we can go back into our. Now the site is live. We can go back to our browser, reload our page. We can still do the website. And this is a fully functional Drupal website at this point. Yeah, is that demo? Any questions? No questions.
I stopped the live stream early last time, so I was giving it a moment.